5 minutes.
Ms. Walters, why don't we talk to you a little bit more about the overtime rule? It causes workers who were previously exempt from overtime to be included in overtime. I always like to repeat a story. A buddy of mine back home, his daughter got a job, probably earning in this, under this amount. He told her always be the first one to work in the morning and the last one to go home at night. Be a hard worker and you're going to move up. And she was a hard worker and moved up. What impact would this have on your business or the businesses that you advise, I guess, if some employee wanted to work extra hard and really, go all out?
So if the employee, and I think many employees want to work extra hard, the question is, what does that get you? So if we're talking about more money, that may not be the result. Even the Department of Labor, when the final regulations came out, the DOL provided examples where an employer could prohibit overtime and might not
It's a practical matter. You get in trouble with your boss for working hard, wouldn't you?
I'm sorry, say again?
If you define working hard as putting in another half hour at the end of the day or do something extra, you'd get in trouble with your boss because they'd have to pay you more, right?
Well, if you're non-exempt, then yes, the employer has to pay for that time.
Right. Okay, so it would be a problem. I think in some jobs you can be in a position, usually I think of a salaried job in which you're supposed to complete something by the end of the day and maybe complete a report or something. Well, what if at the end of the day you don't feel you've done a good job on the report? Aren't you kind of stuck in a situation in which either you have to turn in a not very good report or hang around an extra hour if you want and finish things? It doesn't kind of put you in, what would you do if you were an employee and it's 5 o'clock and you'd like to spiff this up a little bit more, do a little bit of work, or so you could either turn in the report, which you don't think is adequate, at 5, or hang around at 5:30 and get in trouble with your boss because they got to pay you for a half hour of overtime. What would you do in that position?
It's interesting. We often find the stories I often hear, it's the star employee, it's the star performer who says, no, I don't mind, I'll do this extra work without pay. And you can't. Obviously, we've said the employer has to pay for that time. So what would I do? I'd have to talk to my boss and say, do you want my quality or do you want my time? And then we figure it out from there.
Like the rule was put together by somebody who likes to golf all the time. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Mr. Brantley, can you give us any suggestions? You spoke about the overtime rule. Any other suggestions you have for changes in the wage and hour policy?
Absolutely. One of the key challenges with the policy as currently constructed relates to how we characterize part-time employment. So let's take the example of an accountant who's a CPA who has been working full-time for years, who we make an accommodation so that that person can be at home part-time to spend with a newborn or with an elderly parent. If that salary of that CPA professional staff member goes below $47,000, all of a sudden we are no longer able to consider that person as an exempt employee. The same could be true for a fundraising development professional who is ready to retire, and we'd like to provide a stipend so that that person could actually provide some services to our college or university. If that looks anything like part-time, that person could all of a sudden be characterized as non-exempt and be required to complete a timesheet for the first time in his or her career.
Okay, makes things a little bit more difficult. Ms. Reiner, question for you, we'll get you all. You expressed frustration in your testimony the way the department treated your company. Has the department worked with you in any ways to ensure that small businesses which are franchised can succeed?
No, sir. Unfortunately, we've really had an adversarial relationship to the extent that we've had to take them to court to protect our business. So we had hoped in the beginning that we were working together. We hoped that we were educating them as to our model, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So we're in court trying to bring resolution and protect our industry.
Okay. This is a more sensitive question. Any of you familiar with the EEO-1 form? Mr. Brantley, you're familiar with it?
Yes.
Yeah. How long have you been familiar with the form, or how long have you been familiar with organizations that have to fill out that form?
Well, as a human resource professional, my entire career, I have a long history of completing that form.
Okay. To make things turn out right on that form, do you or people like you advise people who should be hired, who should be promoted?
Well, most employers that have federal contracts have to have an affirmative action plan. So in turn, as part of that, you have goals and expectations in terms of your recruitment efforts.
Does it ever change who's hired or promoted because you want the numbers to work out right on that form?
Well, obviously, the perspective of any employer should be that we're hiring the right person for the job. It's just as it relates to our recruitment efforts, the types of things that we're doing to attract a more diverse applicant pool.
Is it a fact that, you know, if you have 2 people applying for a job or 3 people applying a job, you may pick somebody different than you would otherwise?
No, the guidance is if both positions are equal, if both individuals are equal, that you would defer to someone from a minority status.
Okay. Thank you.